Good afternoon, and welcome to the Academy at Florida Presbyterian Homes. I'm Eugene Scruggs, retired professor emeritus, University of South Florida, with some 45 years of background in teaching, language, linguistics, history, international studies. I've always been fascinated by puns and humor as part of linguistics. So today, to follow up with the Academy programs, which we were often doing for 15 years, twice a month, with a real audience of 50, 60, up to 100 people in our chapel. But now with the virus and our shutdown, we're doing a virtual program. So today's then is a presentation recorded for YouTube. Now, Florida Presbyterian Homes is a CCRC, a continuing care retirement community, and the Academy has always intended to be a bright spot in mental gymnastics, mental health for our folks. Now, the virus, of course, has kept us in a kind of unstable position, but we've been able to cope with it more or less. Now, a lot of things really interesting occur around here, even if we're not, totally open, but shut down. Strange things. For example, last night, a knock on my door. I opened it up and it was security. So we have security that travels around, and checks on things. And the security agent said, Professor Scruggs, some people around here have been complaining that your dog has been chasing an old woman on a bike. And I thought about that for a minute and I said, no, that can't be. My dog doesn't even own a bike. One of our residents the other day was in his car and he was driving down I-4, and his wife called him. She says, honey, you need to be careful, because on TV they were telling me that there's some crazy fool driving the wrong way on the interstate. And he said, well, honey, it's more than one car. There's literally hundreds of them. Folks here at Florida Presbyterian Homes keep asking if the coronavirus is really serious. Well, when I say to them, if you look out, you'll see that the churches are closed, the casino is closed, the bars are closed. That means that both the devil and God are thinking this is pretty serious stuff. So then you ought to be careful as well. I still have to go to Publix. So Publix is our local grocery store where it's a pleasure to shop, as they say. So to get a little pleasure, I was there recently and went down the paper aisle as usual, checking out to see if they had some of the essentials. And there was no toilet paper, and there was no tissue, no napkins. But there was a sign, and the sign read, due to a hoarding of paper products and a sudden depiction of human stupidity, we are going to have to say only one roll of toilet tissue per person when we finally get it. So there's this breakout of stupidity. Well, um, common sense has always been somewhat, maybe in short supply. And you'll notice, if you are a moviegoer, that most all of the disaster movies, if you notice, disaster, world's about to end, disaster movies, it's always the government and the people who are not paying attention and not accepting what needs to be done. And there's some poor scientist or a group of scientists who must struggle to stop the horror and to save the world. So we, as part of our culture, um, the virologists are telling us that basically there are two problems with the spread of the COVID-19. One is the density of the population. That's number one. Number two is the density of the population. We all need a little bit of tolerance for stupidity, but mine tends to wear a bit thin. So I'm promoting the sale of duct tape. Now, duct tape can't stop stupid, but it can muffle it a bit. So yay for duct tape. You know, a lot of folks here in Polk County are not really paying attention to social distancing. I think that's a big mistake because, in my estimation, it's much better to be 6 feet apart than to be 6 feet under. You know, right now, with many of the beauty salons closed and barber shops closed, seems that the morticians are about the only ones doing hair and nails. Now that ought to put some fear into you. Since the salons have been closed a significant amount of time, men are beginning to find out the color of their love's true hair. A pseudo blonde friend of mine, if you know what I mean by that, was saying to me, it's really, really weird. She said that I can go into a store and buy marijuana, but I have to meet my beautician in an alley in order to get my hair done. I noticed everybody's getting a little bit crazy. And I have to add myself to that because I notice I'm talking a lot to myself lately. Not only am I talking to myself, but I'm also talking to my appliances. Now, just this morning when I was having coffee and toast, I spoke to my toaster and my microwave oven about the pandemic, and they agreed completely that things were getting hot. I would talk to my refrigerator, but my refrigerator tends to be cold and distant. But I do talk to my iron. Well, I do iron. My iron says, hey, if you listen to me, I will take the wrinkles out. I can straighten anything out, says the iron. There's nothing too pressing. So I thought that was pretty good. My vacuum cleaner, on the other hand, my vacuum cleaner is rather unsympathetic. It was telling me when I mentioned the virus and worrying about, things happening, and vacuum cleaner says, well, just suck it up. So I I didn't really care for that much. The ceiling fan did have something to say. It says, don't worry, brother, it'll blow over. Well, that's great too. But my doorknob, on the other hand, only said, get a grip. Get a grip, says my doorknob. And my my curtain says, pull yourself together, which was pretty nice of it, I think. My doggie, though, my little Shih Tzu Ming Ming, is not at all happy with this keeping in the house all the time. She misses her friends. Especially she misses going out and reading all the messages they leave for her. Messages, well, our messages now these days are strictly on the phone. We get our phone messages, but that's about it. Now, the phone etiquette used to be that when we were getting ready to end a conversation, we would say something like, well, I'll see you soon. Hasta la vista. Bye-bye. I'll see you tomorrow. Whatever. But now, of course, the only thing we really can say is, I'll call you later. I think the virus, speaking of telephones, the virus must be really bad in India, because I'm not getting those calls these days from those techie kids over in India wanting to help me to repair and make my computer faster. I'm not getting those, so that tells me something about the pandemic in India. Hoping for a virus. I'm hoping for a virus. Get serious. I'm hoping for a vaccine for the virus, as we all are. Of course, we've got some people around here who we can call anti-vaxxers. In other words, they're opposed to vaccination. Now, that's not really new. People refusing to be vaccinated. Professor Jenner, back a couple of 100 years ago, came out with the smallpox vaccine. And there were an enormous number of people who refused to take it. And there were a tremendous number of deaths as a consequence. And not only that, but many, many scarred people. It took a long time for the public to accept that vaccine, which eventually completely destroyed smallpox. Talking about social distancing, someone told me the other day they had a great idea about how to do this social distancing. They said, if you eat a lot of garlic, or if you eat a lot of Limburger cheese, you don't have to worry about social distancing, because nobody will come near you anyway. Well, I'm not sure I want to try that, because I don't really like Limburger that much and don't really care that much for garlic. Would wear a mask and do wear a mask around here, except when I'm in the house. My Aunt Flossie she's a crocheter, my Aunt Flossie. And she crocheted me a mask the other day. Beautiful mask. But I can't really wear it because it's got too many holes in it. Let's see. The other day, I took off down to Walmart thinking, well, they're testing people down at Walmart. And so I'll go down there and I'll get myself tested. So I got in my car and I went down to Walmart, turned in the parking lot, and the first thing I saw was a sign that said, Corona's testing in the rear. I made a quick U-turn, headed back home, because I thought for sure that the testing was an oral swab. Now, this COVID-19 has done some miracle things. Women have been trying for years to get men to quit watching sports and stay at home. She quit going to the bars every night, stay at home. Well, COVID-19 has shut down all the sports, closed all the bars and the casinos. Now the husbands have to stay at home. But I feel kind of sorry for a lot of them because for months they've been pressing their wives and telling, oh, honey, I'll get around to it. I'll clean out that garage and take care of the attic one day when I have enough time. Well, you see, the problem now is they can't say that because they got plenty of time. Crazy about, that early on was people hoarding all that TP paper, that toilet paper. So I'm wondering, the year 2000 got the nickname Y2K. So 2000 is Y2K. I'm wondering now if, a few years from now, this 2020 will be known as the Y2Ply. Plenty of cardboard rollers left over from all that toilet paper. So here at the Presbyterian Homes, we have a craft group, and they are spending a lot of time. They found a thing they can do, and that's to make wreaths, Christmas wreaths, using these little tubes from inside the toilet paper rolls. It's a useful activity. I read the Ledger every day. That's about worth wrapping a fish in, but still, I love to have a paper. I just need to feel it. And not a lot to read, but I was looking through the ads the other day. The ads in our newspaper. I spotted this one that was kind of interesting. It said, single man with a stockpile of toilet paper seeks single woman with a supply of hand sanitizer, looking for a safe and clean relationship. Nice ad. Went to the bank yesterday and I felt really peculiar. Going up to the window with a mask on and asking the teller lady, give me some money. Any second I thought for sure the alarm would go off, but it didn't. The other day, I was heading over on 275, and I was in the HOV lane because I was in a hurry. And all of a sudden, the siren comes up behind me. Cop stops me, and he says, buddy, you're in the HOV lane, and if you're in it, you need a passenger. I'm going to have to write you a ticket. And I said, well, sir, due to the social distancing, My passenger's in the car behind me, and I still got a ticket. Books A Million, I noticed they're telling us that their best sellers these days are cookbooks and weight watching books, since so many people are obviously sitting on their couch having snacks. The 7-Eleven, on the other hand, says their best seller is beer. Now, I'm not a real big beer drinker, but I like a beer now and then, especially with a meal. So the other day I was in a Mexican restaurant and I ordered a Corona. Sound like a simple thing to do in a Mexican restaurant. Well, in a second or two, out comes a cook from the kitchen and he coughed in my face. Now, obviously, this Chinese cook was not familiar with the Corona beer. Now, I was in a real Chinese restaurant later, and at the end of the meal, of course, always get a nice fortune cookie. Good old fortune cookie. Tastes like cardboard. But anyway, I looked at my fortune, and it said, positive things will happen to you this week. I said, thank you, but would you mind giving me another cookie? My daughters and my nieces are homeschooling their kids. And they talk about how stressful and how much they admire teachers, how stressful this job of teaching their kids in homeschool. One of my daughters came up with a great idea, though, and that was to have periodically a tornado drill. You could have a tornado drill, and you tell your kids, get under the bed and lie there for 30 minutes till the risk is over. And that gives them 30 minutes of respite to get over some of the stress. So practicing a drill, a tornado drill. Now homeschooling can be, it can be dangerous. Saw in the paper the other day where 3 of the mothers who are homeschooling are now being treated for alcoholism. And a couple of others were now being treated by psychologists. To make it worse, though, one kid phoned his home and phoned in a bomb threat. Getting a bit bad. Now, parents, a bunch of them here in the neighborhood are petitioning the teachers union to get the kids back in school. They're petitioning the teachers union. They're saying to them, hey, we are going to promote pay raises. We're going to go around talking about respect for teachers. We're going to support you 100%. Just get our kids back in school. Parents may actually invent a vaccine before the scientists do. Now with summer, watch out when you grill. The word has come out that hand sanitizer is very flammable, and if you use it just before you light the grill, you may get some flames popping out on your hands. And one of my cousins reported the other day that he had done that, not experimenting, but just on an accident, and it singed all the hair off his hand. I see my dog wants to go out. Stop, Ming Ming, stop. Sorry about that. I was at an elderly couple's house for dinner not long ago, and I noticed the man was using all sorts of pet names for his wife. Now, they'd been married for a long, long time. And he was calling her things like honey and sugar and darling and my sunshine and on like that with these pet names. And she was in the kitchen at one point, and I said, "Hey, I think that's really great. Well, you're using so many really nice names for your wife after all these years of being together." And he says, "Well, I have to confess." He said, "Back a few years ago, I forgot her name, and I'm really afraid to ask her what it is." A bad scene. My housekeeping lady, I do have a housekeeping lady, truly. She called me. She called me the other morning, left a message. She says, I'm going to be cleaning your house from home. So what I will do is I will send you the instructions via email. Thought about that for a minute. That, that doesn't sound like a very good idea to me. Not at all, because I am terrible at housekeeping. But she's going to send me how to do it so I can do it quite well. So there you have that part. I do save, money, so I don't have to worry about so much laundry and dry cleaning because, for the most part, I don't use any clothes. Well, I stay in my PJs till noon, and after noon, I switch to a t-shirt and shorts, and then at bedtime, I go back into a pair of PJs. So, I don't have shirts to wash and iron. I don't have, coats to take to the cleaners. So it's really, really, really quite saving. Now, I do have to get dressed once a week, at least dressed enough so I can go out to the street to take out the garbage. I do have some good news because I can now tell you I like to touch my face and rub my eyes and scratch my head. And it's kind of hard to keep my hands off my face. But I've found a way to do that, and that is to take a glass of wine in both hands. If you got a glass of wine in both hands, you can't touch your face. That's good. Speaking of wine, my son-in-law, not that he's a real big drinker, but he likes to go out with his buddies on Saturday night to bars. Now, of course, you can't do that. So he told me a little while ago, he says, Doc, that's what he called me, Doc. He says, Doc, I'm going to put a bottle of whiskey in every room in the house, and then I'm going to go bar hopping. And I thought that sounded like a, pretty good thing to do in lieu of real bar hopping. A little less stressful, a little less noisy, maybe. Well, I bet you can guess that come fall, we're going to start having lots of babies coming into the hospital. It's going to be a new baby boom. So 13 years from now, roughly speaking, in 2013, we're going to have a bunch of, a cohort, I guess is the right word, a cohort of young folks who will have not X or Y or millennial. They're going to be the quarantine teens, quarantines. You know, you wonder, well, what's going to be the really popular names in those, you know, in 2013, or well, not then, but soon, as soon as they start being born, actually. What are they going to be, the popular names? Well, for a girl, I'm betting on Charmin, not Charmin, but Charmin. Okay, even though they may be charming. For a boy, it's a little harder, but if you think about Fauci and how popular, his name is Anthony. So I'm going to bet that boys' names will be, that Anthony and or Tony will be a real popular name for boys. You know, the baby boomers are, you know, the real baby boomers born in the 50s and early 60s. They're starting to make it to our CCRCs. They're starting to make it here to retirement centers, and they're, you know, they all had these famous music, you know, these lines they love so much, but they're having to readjust and change the lyrics a bit. For example, Ringo Starr had a little line that goes, "I get along with a little help from my friends." Now this become, "I get a little help with my depends." Well, some of you may understand that, and some of you may not. Another line is by the Bee Gees, "How can you mend a broken heart?" And so they're going to have to change that to, "How can you mend a broken hip?" Paul Simon had one, 50 ways to lose your lover. Well, they're going to change that to 50 ways to you lose your liver. A little bit difficult to say. Well, Helen Reddy's got, "I am woman, hear me roar." That's going to be changed to, "I am woman, hear me snore." I shouldn't have said that. "It's my party and I'll cry if I want to" is going to be, "It's my hormones, I'm sorry, not hormones. Sometimes my southern crap sneaks out in my language. "It's my hormones and I'll cry if I want to." Johnny Cash is, "I can see clearly now," etc., etc. He's going to have to change that. The boomers going to have to change that to, "I can't see clearly now." Well, enough of that. I'm, you know, staying at home, as I say, and been paying a lot of attention to headlines. You got to do something to keep active. So I've been looking at strange headlines or funny headlines. Let me share a few of them with you. Here's one. Parents keep kids home to protest school closing. Study shows frequent sex enhances pregnancy chances. Frequent sex enhances pregnant chances. Who would have thought it? Statistics show about teen pregnancies that they drop off significantly by the age of 25. The marijuana issue, I notice, has been sent to a joint committee of Congress. A joint, been sent to a joint committee of Congress. Government red tape holds up new bridge. That's some powerful duct tape right there. Juvenile court will try shooting defendant. Now that's pretty exaggerated, actually. Local high school dropouts are cut in half. Looks to me like that double the dropouts. New clinical study on obesity seeks larger test group. I don't know how large you have to be. Looks like there'd be plenty of candidates. Police campaign to run down jaywalkers. Campaign to run down jaywalkers. That sounds pretty dangerous to the jaywalker. Here's one about the zoo. Panda mating fails. Veterinarian takes over. Well, that could be an interesting critter. Hospital sued by 7-foot doctors. Hospital sued by 7-foot doctors. I think, it depends. It could be 7-foot doctors. It could be 7-foot doctors. I think you've got to be careful on your accent. But, of course, headlines don't have accents. Now, there's one favorite one, and I'll quit after that, okay? I promise. It's my favorite headline. But in order to understand it, you have to kind of understand the backdrop, the background to it. Seems there's a mafia boss who wanted to get rid of his wife, to out his wife. So he calls in his trusty assistant named Artie. So he says, Artie, I got a new woman. I need to get rid of my wife. And I want her choked. I don't want her knifed or shot or anything like that. Just choked completely. And so I was wondering if you'd do that, Artie. And Artie says, well, sure, boss. You've been so good to me all these years, and kept me along, and I'm just be happy to do it for you. The mafia boss says, well, Artie, I'll pay you. Well, I'll give you $10,000. Artie says, oh, no, boss, you've been much too good to me. I couldn't take all that money. Well, the mafia boss says, no, that on principle, I can't let you do it for nothing. I've got to do something. I got to give you something. So he said, oh, well, suppose you give me $1. Okay. So they agreed that the mafia boss would give Artie $1. So next night, up the stairs he creeps, Artie did, and there was the wife in the bedroom, and he choked her, grabbed some jewels, make it look like a robbery, turned around to start out, and there was the maid. Well, the maid knew him because he'd been around a number of times, so he had to choke her. So he quickly tiptoes back down the stairs, and gosh, he got down to the bottom, and all of a sudden the butler showed up. Well, the butler knew him too, having seen him there in the house before. So the only thing he could do was choke the butler. Well, he started out the front door with his cache of jewels, and people across the way saw him. They got suspicious, and they called the police. Well, the headline, next morning, great headline. Artie chokes 3 for $1. You can see why I like that, right? Well, let's put it this way. We've had enough fun. This is all hopefully just going to be a bad dream someday. Not my program, but the virus. Every ball game will be back to selling out, and every restaurant will have a 2-hour wait, and we'll be griping about that. Every kid will be in school and unhappy about that. Everyone will be back to work and hopefully love their job. Stock market will skyrocket. Houses will be teepeed again during any celebration whatsoever. We'll all embrace and shake hands. That's going to be a great moment. So I'm telling you, just hang in there, world. Thank you for listening, if you have been listening, to this Academy program for celebrating the coronavirus. Good afternoon, folks, and thank you.